When I first met Daniel Harper, I was 22 years old and in my final year at Westbridge University. He wasn't my high school teacher or someone who had watched me grow up. He was my literature professor, brilliant, composed, and deeply passionate about poetry in a way that made the classroom feel alive. I never planned to fall in love with him. Professor Harper was in his early 30s, not much older than many graduate students on campus. He carried himself with quiet confidence, always dressed in simple button-down shirts with sleeves rolled halfway up his arms. But what drew me in wasn't his appearance. It was the way he spoke about words as if they were living things. The first time he noticed me was during a class discussion about forbidden love in classic novels. I had argued that society often condemns relationships without understanding the hearts involved. After class, he stopped me. "You have a thoughtful perspective, Emily," he said gently. "Have you considered graduate studies?" It was an innocent conversation, professional, encouraging. But over time, our discussions stretched longer. We talked about books, life goals, childhood dreams. He learned that I had grown up in a small town and was the first in my family to attend university. I learned that he had lost his mother young and buried himself in literature to cope with grief. Nothing inappropriate happened while I was his student. He kept his distance. He was careful, painfully careful. Even when I felt something changing between us, he maintained professionalism. It wasn't until graduation day, cap still balanced on my head, that he approached me outside the auditorium. "You're no longer my student," he said softly, almost as if reminding himself. "I know," I replied, heart racing. He asked if I would like to have coffee sometime to talk about graduate school options. I knew it wasn't just about academics, and I said yes. What began as coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through the city park. We were cautious at first. He worried constantly about what people would think. He didn't want anyone to believe he had taken advantage of his position. I understood that fear. But I was an adult. I made my own choices. And I chose him. Our relationship wasn't dramatic or scandalous the way people might imagine. It was quiet and steady. He cooked for me in his small apartment. I teased him about his obsession with annotating books. He listened when I doubted myself. I felt seen in a way I never had before. 6 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. I remember staring at the test in my tiny bathroom, hands trembling. My mind raced with questions. Was I ready? Would he be ready? Would people judge us? Would they assume the worst? When I told Daniel, his face went pale, not with anger, but with fear. "Emily," he whispered, sitting down heavily, "are you okay?" I nodded, though tears slipped down my cheeks. He held my hands tightly. "Whatever you decide, I will stand with you." That moment told me everything about the kind of man he was. He didn't panic about his reputation. He didn't distance himself. He focused on me. After many sleepless nights and long conversations, we decided to keep the baby. The news wasn't received kindly. When the university administration learned about our relationship, whispers spread quickly. Some colleagues questioned him. Though we had begun dating after I graduated, suspicion lingered. He faced an internal review. It was humiliating and exhausting. My parents were shocked. My mother cried, not because she hated him, but because she feared for me. "People will talk," she warned. And they did. Friends distanced themselves. Former classmates gossiped. Social media became cruel. Some painted me as naive, others painted him as manipulative. But no one knew the quiet evenings when he read to my growing belly. No one saw how carefully he researched parenting books or how he attended every doctor's appointment, holding my hand like it was the most natural place in the world. When our daughter, Lily, was born, everything shifted. The moment Daniel held her, tears streamed down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered. Watching him become a father erased every doubt I had carried. He was gentle, patient, and completely devoted. Midnight feedings became shared responsibilities. Diapers, lullabies, rocking her back to sleep. We did it together. Still, the world outside remained complicated. Daniel eventually chose to leave the university. Though he had done nothing against policy, the scrutiny never truly faded. He accepted a remote research position with a publishing company instead. It meant less prestige, but more peace. As for me, I postponed graduate school and began working part-time while caring for Lily. Some days were overwhelming. I would stare at my reflection and wonder how life had changed so quickly. But then Lily would laugh, bright and pure, and all the fear melted away. Years passed. The scandal that once felt enormous slowly shrank into memory. People moved on to other stories. We built a quiet life in a small house on the edge of the city. Daniel converted the spare room into a study lined with bookshelves. Lily learned to toddle between stacks of novels. One afternoon, when Lily was 4, she asked, "How did you and Daddy meet?" Daniel and I exchanged a look. "In school," I said carefully. Her eyes widened. "Daddy was your teacher?" "Yes," he admitted gently. She giggled. "That's silly." Maybe it was silly. Maybe it was unconventional. But it was real. I don't pretend our story is simple. It came with challenges, judgment, and sacrifice. There were nights I questioned everything. There were mornings Daniel worried he had cost me opportunities. But love is rarely neat. We didn't plan our path. We didn't intend to defy expectations. We simply found each other at a time when both of us were adults searching for connection. Lily is 10 now. She loves stories the way her father does. Sometimes I watch them curled up on the couch, heads bent over the same book, and I feel something steady and warm settle inside me. If I could speak to my younger self, the girl nervously standing outside the graduation hall, I would tell her this: life will surprise you. It will test you. It will force you to grow faster than you imagined, but it will also give you unexpected joy. I had a baby with my teacher, and what began as whispers and doubt became a family built on choice, responsibility, and love. 10 years later. By the time Lily turned 10, the story that once defined us had become just a chapter, not the whole book. But life has a strange way of reopening old pages. It started on a rainy Thursday afternoon, when Lily came home quieter than usual. She placed her backpack gently on the floor and avoided my eyes. "Everything okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She hesitated. "Someone at school said something weird." Daniel looked up from the kitchen table where he had been grading freelance manuscripts. "What did they say?" he asked calmly. Lily twisted the strap of her bag. "Mia's mom told her that Daddy used to be your teacher and that it's wrong." The word hung in the air like smoke. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't speak immediately. I could see the old worry flicker in his eyes, the fear that our past would one day hurt our daughter. I sat beside Lily on the couch. "Sweetheart, sometimes adults don't understand everything about other people's lives. Daddy and I met at school, yes, but we didn't start our relationship until I was finished there. We were both adults." She frowned thoughtfully. "So it's not bad?" "No," Daniel said gently, coming to sit on her other side. "What matters is respect and choice. Your mom and I chose each other." Lily studied our faces carefully, as if measuring truth. Then she nodded. "Okay." And just like that, she moved on. Children are kinder than adults. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel stood by the bedroom window staring at the rain. "I never wanted her to carry this," he murmured. "She isn't carrying it," I said softly. "We are, and we're strong enough." He turned toward me. "Do you ever regret it? The timing? The way it happened?" It was a question he rarely asked out loud. I thought carefully. My career path had shifted. I had started graduate school part-time years later than planned. Some friendships had faded. Opportunities had slipped past us. But regret? No, I answered honestly. Hard doesn't mean wrong. He exhaled slowly, relief softening his shoulders. Life moved forward, as it always does. I eventually completed my master's degree in counseling, driven partly by our experience. I wanted to help young adults navigate complicated emotions and decisions. Daniel's remote work gave him flexibility, and he often joked that he had traded lecture halls for bedtime stories. We built traditions: Sunday pancakes, Friday movie nights, summer trips to the coast. Our home felt peaceful, grounded. Yet, one evening, something unexpected happened. I received an email from Westbridge University. They were hosting a 10-year alumni event and had invited my graduating class back for a celebration. There would be faculty panels, networking events, and a dinner reception. My stomach tightened as I read it. Daniel noticed immediately. "What is it?" "Alumni reunion," I said quietly. We hadn't set foot on campus together since he left. He walked over and read the invitation. For a moment, silence stretched between us. "You don't have to go," he said. "But maybe I should," I replied. Running from the past hadn't erased it. Maybe facing it would. After days of thinking, I RSVP'd yes. The night of the event, I wore a simple navy dress. Daniel adjusted his tie in the mirror, looking composed but thoughtful. "You don't have to stay if it feels uncomfortable," I told him. "I'm not ashamed, just aware." When we arrived, the campus looked smaller than I remembered. Familiar buildings glowed under soft lights. Laughter floated across the courtyard. Some faces lit up with genuine warmth when they saw me. Others flickered with curiosity. A few former classmates approached carefully. "You look happy," one of them said, glancing at Daniel. "I am," I replied simply. There were no dramatic confrontations, no public accusations, just subtle glances and whispered speculation. But something had changed. Time had softened judgment. Several faculty members greeted Daniel politely. A younger professor even thanked him for his published research, admitting she had cited his work. We were no longer a scandal. We were simply two adults who had built a life. Later that evening, while standing beneath the old oak tree near the library, Daniel squeezed my hand. "I was terrified we'd never move beyond that chapter," he admitted. "We did," I said. On the drive home, I felt lighter. The story that once felt like a shadow no longer followed us so closely. When we walked through our front door, Lily was asleep at my parents' house, waiting for us to pick her up in the morning. The house was quiet. Daniel wrapped his arms around me. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For choosing me, even when it wasn't easy." I smiled. "You chose me too." Years earlier, when I stared at a positive pregnancy test in fear, I couldn't have imagined this moment, standing in a quiet house, steady and sure. Our love had been questioned. Our decisions had been dissected, but we had shown up for each other every day, and that made all the difference. As we turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I realized something important. Our story was never about scandal. It was about responsibility. It was about growing up quickly and learning how to protect the people we love. It was about facing judgment and choosing grace instead of bitterness. And most of all, it was about a little girl who laughed easily, loved fiercely, and reminded us every day why we chose this path. Whatever people said years ago no longer mattered, because the life we built spoke louder than whispers ever could. When Lily turned 16, the questions changed. They were no longer simple and curious. They were deeper, sharper. Teenagers have a way of looking at the world with new eyes, and one evening, as she sat across from us at the dinner table, she asked the question I had known would come someday. Did people think Dad took advantage of you? The room fell quiet. Daniel didn't interrupt. He never did when it came to difficult conversations. He believed truth deserved space. I folded my hands together. Yes, I said gently. Some people did. And did he? She pressed. Daniel's face remained calm, but I saw the tension in his shoulders.
I met her eyes directly. No, your father was careful, sometimes too careful. He didn't even ask me to coffee until after I graduated. I was an adult. I made my own choices. Lily studied us both. Then why did people act like it was something terrible? Because power matters, Daniel answered softly. And when someone has authority, like a teacher, it creates responsibility. Even when feelings are real, people worry about fairness. Lily nodded slowly. She was thoughtful like him. Do you regret it? She asked me. It was the same question Daniel had asked years earlier. I smiled faintly. If I regretted it, I wouldn't have you. She rolled her eyes at the sentiment, but I saw relief in her expression. That night, after she went upstairs, Daniel sat quietly on the couch. She deserves honesty, he said. She has it. He exhaled. I always worried she'd look at me differently. She won't, I said, because you've shown her who you are every single day. And he had. He never hid from the complexity of our beginning. He never pretended it was simple or romantic in a fairy tale way. He acknowledged the imbalance that once existed. He acknowledged how carefully he had to step back. He acknowledged that timing mattered, that honesty shaped Lily more than anything. A year later, she came home excited about a boy in her debate club. He's smart, she said, and kind. Daniel nearly choked on his tea. I laughed. You remember you're 16, right? She groaned. Relax. He's my age. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Good. But later that night, when Lily wasn't around, he turned serious. I never want her to feel pressured, he said, or influenced. She won't, I reassured him, because you taught her what respect looks like. Time has a way of reframing everything. What once felt like scandal eventually became lesson. Lily grew into a confident young woman. She questioned authority. She believed in consent, fairness, equality. She understood that love must be chosen freely, without fear, without manipulation. Maybe that awareness was the unexpected gift of our complicated beginning. When she left for university at 18, Daniel grew quiet in a different way. I hope she finds someone who sees her the way I saw you, he said softly as we helped carry her boxes into her dorm. I smiled. And I hope she makes her own choices, just like I did. That first night without her in the house felt strange. Too quiet. The hallway light stayed off. No music drifting from upstairs. We sat at the kitchen table, older now, lines gently tracing our faces. Do you ever think about how different life could have been? I asked. All the time, he admitted. If I had transferred universities earlier, if you had taken a different class, if we had ignored our feelings, and he reached across the table and took my hand, then I wouldn't have the life I have now. Neither would I. Our story was never perfect. It was never simple. It forced us to grow faster, to defend ourselves, to be careful where others were carefree. But it was ours, and in the end, that mattered more than approval. Years later, at Lily's college graduation, as she walked across the stage with confidence and pride, Daniel squeezed my hand just like he had on my graduation day long ago. Life had come full circle. She ran toward us afterward, diploma clutched tightly, laughter bright and unburdened. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? I asked. For always telling me the truth. I looked at Daniel. The whispers that once followed us were gone. What remained was a family built not on secrecy, but on accountability, patience, and daily commitment. Love doesn't erase responsibility. Responsibility doesn't erase love. We learn to hold both. And that balance, hard-earned and imperfect, became the foundation of everything we built. I had a baby with my teacher. But more than that, I built a life with a man who chose to act with care when it mattered most. And together, we raised a daughter who knew the difference.